Chapter 3. Jesus is Lord Used Tires. We crossed the Arizona state line at sunup. The clouds were pink and fat and hilarious looking, like the hippo ballerinas in a Disney movie. The road took us through a place called Texas Canyon. They looked nothing like Texas. Heaven be praised for that. But looked like nothing else I had ever seen either. It was a kind of forest, except that in place of trees, there was all these puffy-looking rocks, shaped like roundish animals and roundish people. Rocks stacked on top of one another, like piles of copulating potato bugs. Wherever the sun hit them, they turned pink. The whole scene looked too goofy to be real. We whizzed by a roadside sign on which I could make out on dinosaur. I wondered if it told what kind of rocks they were, or if it was saying that they were actually petrified dinosaur turrets. I was laughing my head off. "This is too much," I said to the Indian child. "This is the best thing I've seen in years." Whether my car conked out or not, I made up my mind to live in Arizona. It was the second day of the new year. I had stayed on at the Broken Arrow through most of the holidays, earning some money changing beds. The older woman with the shakes, whose name was Mrs. Hodge, was determined that I should stay a while. She said they could use the extra help during the Christmas season, especially since her daughter-in-law's ankles were giving her trouble. Which is no wonder. A human ankle is not designed to hold up 250 pounds. If it were meant to weigh that much, we would have big round ankles like an elephant or hippopotamus. They did quite get a few folks at Christmas time, passing through on their way to some place on one side or the other of Oklahoma, which is where I longed to be. But on the other hand, I was glad for the chance to make some bucks before I headed on down the pike. Mrs. Hodge's ulterior motive, I believe, was the child, which she looked after a great deal of the time. She made it plain that her fondest wish was to have a grandbaby. Whenever Fat Irene would pick up the baby, which is not too often, Miss Hodge would declare, "Irene, you don't know how becoming that looks," as if someone ought to have a kid because it looked good on him. By this time I had developed a name for the child, at least for the time being. I called her Turtle, on account of her grip. She still wasn't talking, but she knew her name about as far as a cat ever does, which means that when you said it, she would look up if she was right in the mood. Miss Hodge hinted in every imaginable way that she was retarded, but I maintained that she had her own ways of doing things and wasn't inclined to be pushed. She had already been pushed way too far in her lifetime, though of course I didn't tell this to old Miss Hodge or her daughter-in-law. I was in hog heaven to be on the road again, in Arizona. My eyes had started out to hurt in Oklahoma from all the flat land. I swear this is true. I felt like you were always having to look too far to see the horizon. By the time we were in sight of Tucson, it became clear what those goofy pink clouds had been full of. Hail. Within 5 minutes the car was covered with ice inside and out, and there's no driving on that stuff. The traffic was moving about the speed of a government check. I left the interstate at an off-ramp and pulled over to what next looked like the Flying Nun's hat, made out of bumpy concrete, held up by an orange pole. Possibly it had once been a gas station, although there were no pumps in the building at the back of the paved lot looked abandoned. All over the walls and boarded-up windows someone had painted what looked like sperm with little smiles in red spray paint, saying like "Fools believe." I rubbed my hands on my knees to keep them from freezing. There was thunder, though I did not see lightning. I thought of all the mud turtles in Arizona letting go. Did Arizona even have mud turtles? An old man my mama used to clean for would say if it thunders in January, it'll snow in July. Clearly he had never been to Arizona, or perhaps he had. We got out of the open car and stood under the concrete wings to stay dry. Turtle was looking interested in the scenery, which was a first. Up to then, the only thing that appeared to interest her was my special way of starting the car. "This is a foreign country," I told her. "Arizona. You know as much about it as I do, or even Stephen. The hail turned to rain and kept up for half an hour. A guy came out of the little boarded-up building and leaned against one of the orange poles near us. I wondered if he lived there, or what. If he did live there, did he paint the sperms? He had on camouflage army pants and a black baseball cap with cloth flaps hanging down in the back, such as Gregory Peck or whoever it was that always wore those old Foreign Legion movies. His t-shirt said, "Visitor from another planet." That's me, I thought. I should be wearing that shirt. You're from out of town? He asked after a while, eyeing my car. No, I said, I go to Kentucky every year to get my license plate. I didn't like his looks. He lit a cigarette. What'd you pay for that bucket of bolts? $1.82? Sassy one, aren't you? You got that one right, Buster, I said. I wish to God I wasn't going to have to make such a spectacle of myself later on, starting the car. The sun came out before the hail stopped. There was a rainbow over the mountains behind the city, and over that another rainbow with the colors upside down. Between the two rainbows the sky was brighter than everywhere else, like a white sheet lit from the back. In a few minutes it was hot. I had on a big red pullover sweater, and was starting to sweat. Arizona didn't do anything halfway. If Arizona was a movie, you wouldn't believe it. You'd say it was too corny for words. I knew I had better stay put for a few more minutes to give the engine a chance to dry out. The guy was still hanging around, smoking and making me nervous. "Watch out," he said. There was this hairy spider about the size of a small farm animal making its way across the pavement. Its legs jerked up and down like the rubber spiders on a string you get from a gumball machine. "I've seen worse," I said, although to tell you the truth I hadn't. It looked like something that might have crawled out of the Midnight Creature feature. "That's a tarantula," he said. "You gotta watch out for them suckers. They can jump 4 feet. If they get you, you go crazy. It's a special kind of poison." This I didn't believe. I never could figure out why men thought they could impress a woman by making the world out to be such a big, dangerous deal. I mean, we gotta live in the exact same world every damn day of the week, don't we? "What's it coming around here for?" I said. "Is it your pet or your girlfriend?" "Nah," he said, squashing out a cigarette. And I decided he was dumber than he was mean. There was a lot more bugs crawling up on the cement slab. A whole swarm of black ants came out of a crack and milled around the cigarette butt, trying for reasons I could not imagine to take it apart. Some truck had carried that tobacco all the way from Kentucky, maybe, from some Hardbines or Ritchie's or Biddle farms, and now a bunch of ants were going to break into little pieces to take back to their queen. You just never knew where something was going to end up. "We had a lot of rain lately," the guy said. "When the ground gets full of water, the critters drown out of their holes. They got to come up and dry off." He reached out with his foot and squashed a large, shiny black bug with horns. Its wings split apart and white stuff oozed out between them. It was that type that you wouldn't have guessed had wings, although I knew from experience that just about every bug has wings of one kind or another, not including spiders. He lit another cigarette and threw the match at the tarantula, missing it by a couple inches. The spider raised its 2 front legs towards the flame like a scared lady in an old movie. "I got things to do," I said. "So long." I put Turtle in the car, then went around to the other side and put it in neutral and started to push. He laughed. "What is that, a car or a skateboard?" "Look, Buster, you can help but give me a push, or you can just stand and watch. But either way, I'm out of here. This car got me here from Kentucky, and I reckon she's got a few thousand left in here." "Not on them tires she don't," he said. I looked back to see that the rear tire flapping empty on the wheel. "Shit," I said, just as the engine caught and the car zoomed forward. In the rearview mirror I could see broken glass glistening on the off-ramp, dropping away behind me like a twinkly green lake. I had no intention of asking the dumb guy for help. The tire looked like it was done for anyway. So I drove on it for a few blocks. There was a bank, some houses, and a park with palm trees and some sick-looking grass. Some men with rolled-up blankets tied around their waists were kicking at the dirt, probably looking for bugs to step on. Just beyond the park, I could see a stack of tires. "Oh, will you look at that?" I said. "I'm one lucky duck. We should have gone to Las Vegas." The stacked-up tires made a kind of a wall on both sides of the big paved corner lot. Inside the walls, a woman was using an air hose to chase bugs off the pavement, hurting them along with little blasts of air. She was wearing blue jeans and cowboy boots and a red bandana on her head. A long gray braid hung down the middle of her back. "How do," I said. I noticed that the name of the place was Jesus' Lord Used Tires. I remembered wanting to call Wayne Hunter the Lord, just to see who'd get. Maybe this was it. "Hi, darling," she said. "These bugs aggravate the dickens out of me after it rains, but I can't see my way clearing to squash 'em. A bug's just got one life to live, after all, like us." "I know what you mean," I said. "Oh, bless your heart. Looks like you got a couple of flats." I did. I hadn't seen the rear on the right side. "Drive it up on the big jack," she ordered. "We'll get them up and have a look. We'll fix your little wagon right up." I asked if Turtle could ride up on the jack, but she said it wasn't safe. So I took her out of the car and looked for a place to put her down. All those tires around me made me nervous. Just out of instinct, more or less, I looked up to see if there was anything tall overhead to get thrown up onto. There was nothing but clear blue sky. Off to one side there was some old wheel rims and flat tires. An empty tire couldn't possibly explode, I reasoned, so I sat Turtle down in one of those. "What's your little girl's name?" the woman wanted to know. And when I told her, she didn't bat an eye. Usually people would either get embarrassed or give me a lecture. She told me her name was Maddie. "She was a cute little thing," Maddie said. "How do you know she's a girl?" I wasn't lipping off for once. Just curious. It's not as if I had dressed her in paint. Something about the face. We rolled the tires over to a tub of water. Maddie rubbed ivory soap on the treads and then dunked them in like big donuts. Little threads of bubbles steamed up like strings of glass beads. Lots of them. It looked like a whole jewelry store in there. "I'm sorry to tell you, hon, these are bad. I can tell you right now that these aren't going to hold a patch. They're shot through." She looked concerned. "See these places along the rim? They're sliced." She ran her hand along the side of the tire into the water. She had a gold wedding band settled into the flesh of her finger, the way older women's rings do when they never take them off. "I'm sorry," she said again, and I could tell she really was. "There's a Goodyear place down the road about 6 blocks. If you want to roll them down there for a second opinion." "That's okay," I said. "I'll take your word for it." Turtle was slapping at the side of the flat white wall, with one hand. The other had caught a hold of the doohickey where the air goes in. I tried to think what in the world we were going to do now. "How much for new ones?" I asked. Maddie considered for a moment. "I could give you a pair of good retreads, 5,000 miles guaranteed, and put on and balance for 65. I have to think about that one, I said. She was so nice, I didn't want to tell her flat out that I couldn't afford new tires. "It's too early in the morning for bad news," Maddie said. "I'll just brew up a pot of coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Come sit."